Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm sat across from a man who the closest he ever got to lying was wearing camouflage. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who makes honest Abe Lincoln look like a used car salesman.
That's funny. Makes me think of Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
I do not tell jokes.
Yeah.
Jokes are a form of lying.
Well, the great thing is...
I do not lie, therefore I do not joke.
So Ron Swanson is basically who you are. And I actually, that intro was 100% from, he said that. He's like, I do not lie. He's like, well, one time I wore camouflage. And that's what inspired that one. So it's funny that you picked that up. Anyways, friends, awesome. Today's episode is Today Matters. And
Today Matters. Maybe if you follow our email, you see that every time. Yes. If you've listened to this podcast before, you may have heard us say Today Matters.
It is that and Rock Kazak are like the two most texted things between the pair of us. Yeah. And it's because the Today Matters thought process, I think if I had to like phrase this today's episode, it is like really the thought process of living the impossible life.
Yeah, we're going to maybe you've just heard that. Like, what does that mean when they keep saying today matters other than trying to say like today is important? What does that really mean? We're going to break down the thought process of today matters.
Yeah, and we are. And the fun thing is that I know you may find this hard to believe if you listen to this podcast, but Garrett grasped that thought process far before I did and has actually had a great influence on teaching this to me. And the way that this first showed up, let's go back in time to our first couple episodes that we ever did. And
let's just pause and be grateful for a second that we've gotten so much better since then.
Yes.
And this studio has been upgraded massively.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I'm going to actually post if you don't follow us on YouTube, table. Not even the picture. I actually realized I recorded our first episode on video and I've never released it. I'm going to put it on YouTube so people can see what it looked like because we were literally just on this little couch in your office doesn't even look the same. So it's kind of funny. Well, anyways, so part of how this podcast started is I told Garrett, look, I'll do all the kind of behind the scenes work. You just got to show up. And he refers to himself as the talent. And that's what I said that he had to do.
I think you're the one who says that.
I do say that because it amuses me. But I was like, look, dude, you just come, bring your greatness. I'll take care of all the other stuff. And that was the agreement we had. And we stick to our agreement. So, but little did I know the fun lessons I was in. If you go back and listen to episode 2, I remember I had so many people be like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you know, but you guys had an audio, the audio went weird at one point in that episode. And I had to answer that so many times. And the reason it went weird is because I was buying all our equipment and I had rather than trying to do things right, I was trying to do them for as cheaply as I possibly could, not realizing the thought process of today's matters and the importance of doing things right. Because, G, as you've taught me, there's only 2 ways to do things, G. What are they?
The right way and again.
And if you may hear that and go, oh, that's good. Well, let me tell you what that actually looks like whenever you're doing it, because truthfully, you've had such a huge impact on me in doing this. So when I bought this cheaper soundboard for us, what happened was Garrett could probably tell you because he's an audio nerd and tech, like you were the JTAC, so you were used to having all the communications, so you know about this stuff. Well, I
just understand how my equipment works.
That is okay. Yeah, whatever. You know, I'm trying not to be triggered by that, but Garrett knows he's poking buttons because this is what he was literally giving me grief about this right before we press record today. So he knows all this, what is it? Something interference. You called it RI interference or something. There was something going on with the power that was where it would get interference and we would get this flickering in our audio. And I wasn't even wearing headphones when we first started doing this. So I didn't realize until afterwards. So I'm going to edit the audio and suddenly it sounds terrible. And I'm like, oh man. Well, fortunately I had the camera, which was the backup audio. So I used the audio from that, which is why if you ever listen to episode 2, when it flicks out, that's what happened. Well, when we came back and Garrett realized what happened, you told me in no uncertain terms that was unacceptable and could not ever happen again because that's not how you do things. And it was said with love, but also very firm. And so I was like, okay, so that's a very small example of something that's happened over and over and over again as we've done this podcast. If you ever come to one of our events, you won't get a cheap Gildan t-shirt from us. You won't get some cheap thin little piece of paper. You'll get nice cardstock. You'll get a nice comfortable t-shirt. It's
worth doing. It's worth doing it right.
Exactly. And that's truthfully a way that we live. So fun. So guess what happened? I had to spend a lot more money to get all the right equipment.
That's one thing I heard growing up. Well, really what I heard is if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. But if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. But also how you do anything is how you do everything. And, if you're going to have poor audio quality on your podcast, that's a reflection of you. It's obviously that's okay to you. It's acceptable.
No, well, but like I wouldn't have said, oh, it's poor audio quality is okay in conscious thought, but that was what my actions were saying. So we're going to come back to this because that is a small microcosm of a greater thought process that I've learned and grasped and implemented in every area of my life and reaped huge benefits. And that's why we're doing this podcast today, is we hope that you can grasp this thought process and really experience the growth and the sense of freedom and purpose that comes from it. So, little thing about today matters. I'll tell you where today doesn't matter in the American workplace. So according to Zippia.com, U.S. employees spend an average of 2.9 hours per 8-hour working day doing non-work activities.
Yeah, this is evident in the amount of memes on the internet about how long men and dads sit on the toilet.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm not going to criticize there, but yeah, but dude, 2.9 hours. That's getting close to half your day.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a math nerd. You could do the quick. I mean, that's almost 40%, right? It's like 36% roughly, somewhere around there.
It's over a quarter.
Yeah. I mean, so think about that when you're talking about how much wasted time. Why are we saying that? Because the Today Matters thought process is really, it's a thought process of intentionality. And if you have intentionality, there is no way that whatever you're doing, like you said, how you do one thing is how you do anything is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. If you can go to work and feel like, whatever, I'm just, hey, I got through my 8-hour day. You're not living with a Today Matters intentional thought process. You are living an unintentional life. And so we're going to get you guys more familiar with what we're saying. We're going to compare these and we're going to refer to them as like unintentional, because if today doesn't matter, you're living unintentionally.
Right, because that's what we say. We're saying today matters because we want to get the most out of today, and no one would hear that and be like, well, that's stupid. Like, no one hears today matters like, that's a dumb idea. Yeah, today does matter, but the point, we're breaking it down because there's things that we do and there's ways that we think and act that what we're saying is counterproductive to that. We're saying, well, I don't know, maybe today doesn't matter. And so we're going to put some of those side by side of today doesn't matter versus today does matter thought processes.
Yeah. And I think that this will be both an elevation of your thought process and also a blind spot revealer. Because if I could sum up the today doesn't matter thought process, AKA unintentional living, it would be, it doesn't matter. That's really it's not that big a deal. That's what you would say. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. What does it matter if I, snooze for 5 minutes on my
it's not
alarm?
that big a deal. Like, why should I spend, X amount of hundreds of dollars on the thing that we have now for our studio mixing desk, as opposed to the one I got off Amazon for $100? It's not that big a deal.
It still gets the job done.
It still gets the job done, right? That was my thought process, and that's why we're referencing that back.
You were looking for what's the cheapest solution that I can come up with?
Minimum effective dose, G.
Yeah.
It's a big Tim Ferriss thing it's like, hey, how little can I do and still achieve the results? That was the thought process where you introduced a thought process to me of like, where it's like, well, how long is it going to take to do this, G? Well, however long it takes to get right.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's a completely different standard and focus. So let's get into that. So that unintentional living really it's a box checking thought process. It's like, it doesn't matter how it's done, just as long as it's done. Like, what's the quickest way that I can get there?
2.9 hours, you know what that is? That's the most amount of time that you can not be useful at work and still not get fired.
Right, and get paid. That's
because
exactly
people
right.
wasting more than that amount of time are getting fired.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They found the perfect line for how you can skate by.
Here's what I can get away with. And that's the thought process of when you're being unintentional, you're saying like, how much time do I not have to be doing what someone else wants me to be doing, right? But when it's what you want to be doing, you're saying, okay, I want to give all of my time to this. And those 2.9 hours of doing other stuff are taking away from the purpose or taking away from the mission.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you're living with a Today Matters intentionality, you have a sense of urgency. It's not just that you want to get a certain amount of things done. You are moving to get them done to the highest standard and really as quickly as possible so that you can make the most of your time. It's a completely different way of operating.
That sense of urgency should impact everything that you do. Even like the conversations and the meetings that you're having, right? Like, well, we booked an hour for this meeting. Let's just like talk for an hour. Maybe we don't need to talk for an hour. Well, we booked an hour because maybe we'll use that amount of time. Why don't we see if we can get this done in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
What are the bullet points? Like, what is the clear objective that we need to get accomplished here? Because all of our time matters today.
Yes.
And we need to use it as effectively as possible, because my time isn't just something for me to waste.
Right.
My time is something for me to use to produce with.
Yeah. And the reason that you'll feel that way is because you know you're not guaranteed forever, and
That's
you've
right.
got some things to accomplish. Like if you really feel a sense of purpose and mission in your life, you're going to know I got to get this done today, because really the window may close, right? I may not have the chance. It's not going to be there forever. So it's completely different. And we've talked about this before on time frame orientation. If you're an unintentional, it's not that big a deal type of person, you got a 5 and 2 mentality. I'll do what I got to for 5 so I can do what I want to for 2, aka Monday to Friday and then Saturday and Sunday. So like everybody's living for the weekend, G, like the saying goes. Whereas if you're
then what are you doing on that? And so what you're saying is like, okay, for these 5 days of the week, like that matters. Like I got to be on time. I got to work well. I got to give. But then for these other 2 days, it doesn't matter. I'll wake up whenever I want to wake up. I'll do whatever I want to do. And really when you're doing that, you're saying it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can just do whatever.
Yeah, there's a massive contrast if you're a 5 and 2 person, where your 5, like you said, your 5 is very much like routine based, and I wake up at this time, I got to be here. And then your 2 is like, I sleep until 1 p.m. and that day just sort of disappeared, but it's okay. Like that's an unintentional way of living. And if you added up the days that you wasted, it would be pretty shocking.
You know, the only thing that's strange to me about Saturdays and Sundays is because I mean, I don't look at what I do Monday through Friday as work. I don't look at what I do Saturday and Sunday as work. What's different is just the people that I talk to.
Right.
Right. Because I'm working with different people on Saturday and Sunday, working on some different missions on Saturday and Sunday. And the people that I work with, you know, whether it's people in the real estate industry or bank industry and stuff like that, the only difference is I don't get emails from them on Saturday and Sunday.
All right, there you go. Fun times. Whereas going to contrast that with the Today Matters, you pretty much just gave it. It's a 365/7 mentality, right?
Yeah.
Like 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 66.
Saturdays matter a lot to us.
Big time, man.
Sundays matter a lot to us. Like every day is an opportunity for me to produce. Every day is an opportunity that God has given me. You're still alive for a reason, and I have work for you to go and do.
Yeah. And I got to say, the way I wake up now pretty much by default is I wake up and I'm like, oh man, like I got things to do today that I am looking forward to doing. Like every day I write down what I'm looking forward to doing. And on Saturday, like you said, it's Mighty Men Day. It's the day for our men's group at church. That's always, I'm like, oh, Saturday, man. I just feel like something just pulls me out of bed. But I feel that way every day.
That's how you should feel every day. That's the thing that I try to give people too. Like everyone's at least had a moment like that at some point in your life. Even if it's like, oh man, I have an interview today for this new job that I really want. I can't be late. And you wake up immediately in the morning because you're thinking about, okay, this is important. I have to be here for this. You can, if you align your life correctly, if you'll understand what your purpose is and how valuable you really are, you'll wake up and feel that way every day.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, man. And it's an amazing way to live. So then if you're living unintentionally, once again, comparing it, you know what your focus is, G? Your happiness.
Right.
That is your barometer for whether things are good or bad.
And if you're focused on happiness, what'll happen is like some days matter and some days don't.
100%.
But what indicates that for you is how you feel about the day.
Yep.
Like no one's going to say today doesn't matter. No days matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's acceptable when you're happy. You're like, okay, great. I can rest today. I can kind of do whatever. Oh man, I'm not happy. I got to get up and get myself back to happiness.
Yeah.
But either way, you're being pushed and motivated by how you feel in a situation, right? It's from the outside in that you're being pushed versus on the other side of being, you know, the unintentional is my happiness or lack of happiness is what moves me. On the other side of that is what your mission is and what your focus is in your life. Every single day matters, whether I feel good or I don't, whether I'm sick or I'm healthy, whether it's sunny outside or it's cloudy, whether it's a work day, air quotes, or it's a weekend day. Every single day matters.
Yeah. Big highlight that you touched on there was the external versus internal and the emotional led. Like you said, if your happiness is the big thing and you're emotionally led, you're going to have good days and bad days.
You know what that reminds me of is, and I mean, I connect a lot of things back to this, but the guys who would quit in SEAL training.
Yeah.
And what they would say is, well, I just decided I don't want to do this anymore. And that they're saying, you don't want to do it anymore because it hurts.
Right.
And because it hurts, you don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
Versus the people who make it through that, they weren't talking about how they felt about it, how much they wanted to or didn't want to, how much they, felt pain or didn't feel pain. What they were focused on was the important work that had to be done that they were going to be a part of, right? And they were focused on other people. So that's the external versus internal, right? Like, oh, well, I wanted to do this until it hurt this bad, and now I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. When you said whenever you went in that you felt like you were supposed to be there, it was something that you were supposed to do. So you had a greater sense. And that's what we're saying. If you're not emotionally led, if you're led by a vision and like a sense of mission, that is way different, because mission and vision don't just like have bad days, right? Like your emotions, some days I will wake up and I'm like, what is going on? And I have to do a little bit more in my morning routine to get myself primed and ready to go for the day. Most days I wake up and I'm like, let's freaking get it, man. Like I'm ready to go. But some days I still have those days. But your mission and your vision never goes, oh, you know what? Like it's not so good today. Your mission and vision is the same. It's a standard you feel compelled and pulled towards. And when you wake up and you've had a clear sight of that, it's a completely different experience. You are literally being pulled forward, not being, pressed down by your bad emotions or lifted up by your positive ones. It's a lot more consistent. And like we said, you touched on it. If you're externally led, you're a very unintentional person. I'll tell you a place where most people get this, G, and I actually just experienced this and made the point to my kids because I want them to start to learn this thought process. How many people know about as they call it in England, the holiday blues, as we would say, the vacation blues, which is you've had a great time on vacation.
Yeah.
And you went away for a week.
Yeah, because you guys just came back.
We just came back, yeah. And we did, when we go on vacation, man, we live it up. We did what we want. We did whatever we want. We ate ice cream every day. We were in the sun. We were in the pool. We did all sorts of fun stuff. We had a great time, made lifelong family memories. I'm super grateful for it. But what this will look like, and I experienced this a lot in the UK, is like right before you're getting ready to go on your flight home, you are so down because you're realizing you got to go back to I got to wake up tomorrow. I got to wake up tomorrow at this time. I got to go back to work, and that's not really what I want to do. And I've just spent this whole time doing exactly what I wanted to do. And wouldn't it be great if I could just live like this every day, just doing exactly what I wanted to do?
You know what? I want to bring this back to really quick, and then we'll move forward from the vacation blues. Just a thought there about the unintentional versus intentional, and really living in today matters. If you're focused on today, like you can focus on like what's the joys of today, what's the work of today, what's the fruit of today. Because just like on, when you're coming home from vacation, you have those blues. But everyone who's been on vacation has also done this. It's the last day of vacation. Tomorrow we have to go home. Mm-hmm. You're not even thinking about today. You're thinking about tomorrow. Good. Yeah. Right. So that today matters thought process is centering yourself on today. Yeah. Okay, today is the day that I'm going home. Yeah, this is great. We get to go home today and we get to get back to doing our work. We get to get back to being fruitful, but enjoying whatever the moment of today is. But so often we get stuck in, we only have 2 more days left and then we have to go home, and you can get lost in that thought process of focusing on tomorrow, and then you won't get the power of what today really is.
Yeah, and it passes you by, and people are like, well, what have you done, or what were you up to? And you honestly, you won't remember because your focus is always on tomorrow. It's like sometimes I get it, but I also think it's kind of a sad thing when you hear athletes who are on successful sports teams and they'll talk about like, we didn't really ever get to enjoy what we did until after I retired. And I understand that thought process because you can't get complacent, but I also think it's kind of sad if you weren't able to stop and really feel the presence of the moment. It's an interesting place to be. So right, guys, just to review real quick, we're going to give you 3 ways to make today matter. We want to give you some hard takeaways because, like I said, this really is the thought process of living the impossible life. But I want to review for you once again the unintentional versus the intentional.
I want to say one more thing before we go on, really, just to wrap up the Today Matters thought process before we give 3 ways to live Today Matters. Something we talk about on here all the time is being a good steward.
Yes.
And how we want to get to the end of our life and hear, well done, good and faithful servant. What you're saying is I want to get to the end of my life and know that I've done all that I could possibly do, right? Yeah. I want to have given my very best. I want to maximize every moment, every opportunity that I've been given in life, right? Because I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. What we don't want to hear is, I'm glad you're here, Nick, but you didn't really do what was asked of you. We don't want to hear that we could have done more. And so the Today Matters thought process recenters us in that every day is an opportunity. And if I don't use the opportunities of today, then I'm not going to hear that. Yeah. And it's not striving for perfection because none of us will be perfect. But what we are trying to do is be good stewards, which means we did the best we could with every opportunity that we had. right? That's really like the underlying foundation of Today Matters, is that we used everything to our best. The opposite of that, like, and we talked about, go back and listen to the Stewardship podcast if you haven't. When you look at your life as like, well, I own it, it's my time, I can do whatever I want with it. That'll bring you back into feelings driven, which is, well, today matters because I feel like it matters.
Mm-hmm.
But then other days you'll say like, I want to do whatever I want today, so I don't feel like today matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not being a steward.
Right. And I think a lot of people will say that today doesn't matter when they're going to work because it's not what they want to do.
Right.
So, so you're using it like the weekend as the example. I think a lot of people will place a lot more importance on the weekend because it's finally getting to do with, and I'm speaking as someone who's done this when I was a depressed, self-centered man. Of like,
and none of the things that you did on the weekend were meaningful.
No, exactly. And then everything I did
it was
during
just
the week.
about how the things you did on the weekend made you feel.
Right. That's 100% it. And the week was all about putting in the minimal required effort so I could get to the weekend and do more things that didn't matter. And guess what I had to show for it when I was done? Not a lot. So just to review, like we said, unintentional, you're checking boxes. You're looking for the minimum effort that you can put in to make it happen. You have a 5 and 2 mentality, 5 days a week so I can get to the weekend. Your focus is your happiness. That's the main barometer for whether things are good and bad because you're emotionally led and everything is external. It's easy to have great days when I'm on vacation. Really hard to have great days whenever I know it's going to be a busy day at work or it's going to be a day when I do things that perhaps I'm not naturally inclined to enjoy. Whereas if you're intentional, if you have the thought process of today matters, you live with a sense of urgency. Everything that you do is important and that you are getting about it. There's no time to waste. You are a 365, 7-day-a-week person because every day matters. You are mission focused. When you wake up, it's not, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be a bad day? How do I feel? It's, here's the mission and this is what I'm here to do. So this is so important what I'm going to get after today. You are led by the vision that you see for your life, for the purpose that you have. You are looking ahead and going, okay, like you feel pulled forward by a compelling vision of your future. Your goal is to maximize your potential, not to do the minimum, but to absolutely make sure that you leave nothing on the table and you are driven internally. You are very intentional about making sure that what you do, how you feel, how you think is driven by what's inside, not waiting for something external to come and make you feel better about yourself. Fair?
So good. So good.
All right, G. Well, let's talk to them, man. 3 ways to make today matter. And the great thing is if you go back, like we said, this is the thought process of the impossible life. Every single one of these that we're about to say has an episode on them that you can go back and listen to. So you can go do that digging yourself, or I can put it in the show notes. We'll see what happens. Garrett's still trying to get me to make my flashcard. So number 1 way to make today matter, morning routines, right? Once again, we did a whole episode. The reason that we put morning routines as the number 1 thing, if you, like whenever you were going on a mission, G, you always prepped your gear. You've talked about how meticulous you did. So if you're on a mission and you don't have a morning routine, are you really preparing yourself for the day?
Morning routine is your gear prep for the day.
Yeah.
Right? Some of the things that Nick and I do in our morning routines is we journal, we ice bath, we prepare our minds, we do gratitudes. It's all these things to get ourselves into the right place for today. And just to like put this on, to give some visualization to, or some metaphor to what the morning routines are. Morning routines are zooming in on your day, right? Because one of the things that I do in my morning routine when I'm journaling is I'm thinking about these are the things that have to get done today. These are the most important things for today, which allows me to zoom in on the day. But the morning routine is our preparation for the day. And when I do those things, it's setting me up for success for the day and also a reminder to me what are the important things for today, right? Because if you get up and you're like mentally avoiding the day as much as you can, right? You'll get till like 10:30 and then people are calling you. You're getting emails like, hey, where's this? When are you going to get this done, right? And that's not being intentional. That's, hiding from your day. But the morning routine is saying, I want to be my best. I'm going to get up early and bring my very best to today and remind myself why today matters.
And a bonus of the morning routine is you'll learn a lot about yourself. We talked about this beforehand, just in one of our random conversations about self-mastery. When you start to realize what it takes to put you at your optimum mentally, spiritually, physically, you learn a lot about yourself because people have different requirements to get there.
Now, don't you want to be your best today?
Yeah, I do, man. I do.
And they reinforce each other, right? When you understand this thought process of today matters, you'll want to be your best. And the more you develop a routine that helps you be your best, it's going to reinforce the thought process of today matters.
Yes.
So that's the zooming in. And one thing I want to say about zooming in and zooming out is sometimes we're zoomed in on the wrong things and we're zoomed out on the wrong things. And we need to zoom in on we're zoomed in when we should be zoomed out, and we're zoomed out when we should be zoomed in. So first thing in the morning, I'm going to zoom in on my day. But the other thing we have to do, so going on to the second thing, and this is a little bit of zooming out, is clarifying your mission in life. You need to know, like, and we have a lot of missions, right? And for Nick and I, like, the primary mission in our life is to advance the kingdom, to go and make disciples. But we have missions that are sub-missions to that. In the same way, like when I was deployed, we would go out one night on a mission to, get somebody, right? But that mission was a submission of another mission, which was a submission of another mission. And there was like levels of missions, right? But you need to clarify your mission. Like, what is your mission at work? What is your mission with your family? What's your mission in your personal life and the way that you want to live? And understanding so the mission is, why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah.
Right? If you're going out on the battlefield without a mission, you're like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Right? But on the flip side, if you know what your mission is, it doesn't matter how tough it gets out there, you know why we're here and why it matters.
Yeah. And if you don't have that clarify your mission, that's when you'll take shortcuts and look for the minimum effective way, because you don't have a standard. It doesn't matter, right? Like, it's like, that's not that big a deal. That will be your thought process because you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So you can start to tell yourself stories. Well, this is just one of those stupid things. It doesn't really matter. I just have to get through it. I'll just do the minimum. Whereas if it's like, no, like for me, I think one of the results of
that's the thought process of, my mission is just to survive.
Yeah, that's true. But for me, like the result of clarifying your mission is that you really have an excellence. Like I talked about with Garrett, teaching me about the soundboard, and there's two ways to do things right. And again, I mean, that was the huge thing for me, is that I started off not fully understanding the thought process, but I started realizing I need to raise my standards and start doing things with excellence. And that was before I clarified my mission. Now that I've clarified my mission, I really have, like I said, truly a compelling sense inside me that if I don't do it to that standard, like I can feel it eating at me. Like I feel incongruent in my chest. Like I'm like, that wasn't excellence. I need to go back and make sure that it was. And this happens to me all the time. Let me tell you, the results of that have been hugely beneficial in my business, in my marriage, in every area of my life. When you start to become a level up person, it's amazing how things start growing for you. And what I will say about that, just for those of you that are followers of Jesus like we are, if you're here, like your purpose is really to glorify God, right? And the glorify word, and this is something I want to share with everybody because it was a huge blessing for me that Josh Kraft shared. Glorify, the Greek word is doxa, which means to reveal. So like if we're to make God known, to reveal him in everything we do, ask yourself the question, is what you're doing excellent? Is it revealing the nature of God, or is it just kind of what you feel like doing in the moment?
Yeah.
And that is a way different standard. It'll cause you to level up whenever you feel that sense of responsibility. So I wanted to share that because clarifying that mission for me has been big. Last thing, G, once again, and by the way, we do have a podcast on mission. We also have one on number 3, which is reflection, or you could call it self-assessment if you're looking for it in all our different podcasts. Reflect, look back. We talked about zooming in with morning routines. You zoom out with clarifying your mission. You got to check yourself and make sure that you're actually living up to the standard.
Reflection is your awareness of your accuracy, right?
Yes.
We're going to take shots, and then we're going to examine those shots. And if we need to, we're going to adjust our fire, right? So in the morning, you're visualizing that day. I have a great sense of mission. So like even in those moments where it's like, why am I here? Okay, I know why I'm here, right? That's what my sense of mission will do. And then at the end of my day, I'm going to reflect on that day.
Yeah.
How did I perform today? Did I give my best? Are there some mistakes that I made? How do I not repeat those mistakes? How do I make sure that today matters as well? That's what reflection will do for us. So taking some time to look back. And also, there's some other things you'll get from reflection. You'll get a sense of peace.
Yes.
You'll get a sense of joy from reflection, and realize all the ways that God is protecting you, all the things that God has done for you. Because if we're not intentional, we will be led by our feelings, and the strongest feelings that we'll feel are feelings of fear, our feelings of doubt. And if we're not intentional, those will be the things that lead us.
Yeah, I love that, G. All right, so just to repeat, guys, morning routines, clarifying your mission, and reflection.
And Nick will put in the show notes what all those episodes are that you can go back and listen to for morning routines, mission, and reflection.
I guess I will now. Anyways, guys, last point on the reflection, schedule time for your reflection if you don't already. Yeah. It's something I've started doing, and it's powerful. We hope that this has been a blessing for you today as you realize the thought process, guys. Hey, today matters. Go out and live it. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Remember to share, like, subscribe. If you think that this would be something that someone would enjoy, please send it to them. We appreciate it all. If you want to get in touch, you can follow us on Instagram at The Impossible Life. You'll find us on there. You can also email at impossiblelifepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you want to get in touch and find out about Garrett's personal or business coaching, that's the way to do it. Thank you again for listening. Go out there, think better, and live the impossible. See you again soon.